Excellent. So we are recording.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to round 2 of the land designation vote information session. As you all would recall, in December 18th, 2020, we did a land designation vote. As I said in a video, if you haven't seen it, that there were some ballots lost in the mail with Indigenous Services Canada. Therefore, we have to do this this vote again. And for anyone watching this, I encourage everyone to get out and vote. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Katie.
Great, thank you, Chief Thomas. So I prepared just a quick PowerPoint presentation to help walk us through the BC housing application, what that means, what the designation would mean, and then hopefully what the outcome would be. So the intention is again, just very high level to walk us through why we're doing the land designation, what commitments there are, and then of course, again, what those outcomes would be. And we have Ronald McLean from Aquila Development Services that will help with any questions we might have. And then we have Chelsea Cameron with Indigenous Services Canada, who's also, I believe, our election officer tomorrow, and can help with any of the designation questions as well. So that all being said, I will pull up on my screen my little PowerPoint presentation.
And we have Christy Posniak for any legal questions.
That's right, thank you. Thank you, Rob. So we have Christy Posniak with Ratcliffe, who is part of our legal counsel. Okay, so of course today we are talking about the land designation of lot 62. This is the information session. So the intention of today is to provide opportunity for Esquimalt Nation members to ask any questions or to make comments insofar as the election being held tomorrow and what the election is, the ratification, the vote is for, rather. Sorry, not election, but vote. So in essence, the Esquimalt Nation has submitted to BC Housing for a 55-unit complex. So for a little bit of context, in 2018, Esquimalt Nation ratified their land use plan. It was ratified May of 2018. It delineates that the 44 acres of the land base into different uses. The nation recognizes that there is a shortage of lands and is open to seeing a variety of housing types throughout the community. So this includes various apartment buildings or units that can accommodate large families, but a lot of families. It was confirmed that this would be the intended use as it's shown here on our zoning map or land use map by community at our community meeting on March of 2018. Background with the BC housing application. So in June of 2018, so later in that same year, BC Housing announced a new Indigenous housing plan investing $550 million over a 10-year period to build and operate 1,750 new units of housing both on and off reserve. The program will provide capital funding of around $200,000 per unit, plus some operational support. The preference is towards multiple unit buildings, as well as working with an operational partner, such as a non-profit, which is a non-for-profit housing society. So Esquimalt Nation partnered with Aquila Development Services, who has extensive experience in this area. The RFP, so the request for proposals to BC Housing, had a deadline of October 5th, 2018, which we did meet. And the application had to include site selection, project details, and conceptual drawings. The response to this application, Esquimalt Nation received what was known as a B letter from BC Housing, and that was issued in November 24th of 2018. And this indicated that they would accept our application if we did more work. We had to do a little more legwork. So there were 3 different types of letters. There was an A letter, meaning the nation or applicant that submitted had a shovel-ready project, which we didn't at the time, but we had a pretty sound application, or well enough that they said, okay, if you can get this shovel-ready, we will accept this project. So in support of being able to do that additional legwork, we received a proposal development funding, a PDF of $147,965 and seed funding from CMHC of $44,500. Now, pending the outcome of our designation vote tomorrow, BC Housing has identified Esquimalt Nation's housing project as an eligible project. So if Esquimalt Nation's community members collectively decide that they are in favor of designating lot 62 for the use of a 55-unit building, BC Housing, we will be able to move forward with this, this application. So what is lot 62? Here's an image of where lot 62 sits. So this is land, it's about 1.18 acres, so 1.1, or let's say 1.2 acres. That's Sinupin Road. And then it goes into the cul-de-sac at the top of Sinupin Road. Is where that road leads. So the yellow image there is the proposed development site. It's a pretty tricky site. If we're familiar with Sinupin Road, as you drive up and you look to your left-hand side, it is essentially just rock face and tree. Mm-hmm. So there's not a lot of other use for that land. And for us to try to develop it on our own would be very costly. So that is the proposed site. This is the intended as a high-level schematic that's from a little while ago. It's a site plan of how that site would intend it to be used. So you can see where the 55-unit apartment building is within proximity of Sinupin Road. You would have, we've actually discussed doing underground parking, but in essence, this is an aerial view of what that would look like. And poor Bronwyn might be like, what are you doing? But Bronwyn can update me if I've shown anything that's off or if I'm describing it weird. Okay, so some of the designation details. So Esquimalt Nation is submitting our completed application to BC Housing for 100% funding to develop affordable housing on the reserve, which is of course the 55-unit apartment building complex. The designated lands will be leased at a nominal rate for the purpose of providing below market rental housing for Indigenous households and their families. This apartment complex will not be open to the public. The selection of tenants will prioritize all eligible Esquimalt Nation members and then open to other Indigenous applicants. The lands will be designated for 99 years, starting on the date that the Minister of Indigenous Services accepts the designation. The lease can end earlier on some or all of the designated lands if there are no non-members using the designated lands. Council requests that the designation be revoked over those lands, and Canada's responsible minister at the time accepts it. Benefits for Esquimalt Nation. So the number one benefit is that priority for tenancy will be given to Esquimalt Nation member households. As we all know, as I indicated earlier in my presentation, there's not a lot of acres. The Esquimalt Nation is not very large, it's about 44 acres. We have to build up in order to accommodate members coming back to reserve. And this particular application of 55 units offers, and I might lean on Bronwyn you a little bit to go to review this, but it ranges from a bachelor suite type or single person to 4-person with options to increase the space a little bit. So the priority for tenancy is given to Esquimalt Nation member households. It will be funded 100% by BC Housing, so there's no financial commitments by the Esquimalt Nation, but there is the commitment of designating the land and leasing that land. Cultural, social, and economic vitality on the reserve. operation by an independent not-profit housing operator for all or a portion of the designation term. So that's a benefit because some of the concerns over time have been not having the capacity or the resources to do management of houses on reserve. And also there being concern that there would be any amount of favoritism or discrepancies on how people are selected to tenant those, or to be selected as tenants, or how they're treated as tenants. So by having a professional, arm's length, not-for-profit housing operator come in, it alleviates those concerns a little bit. It suggests that there won't be this convolution of, am I being targeted because whoever's overseeing it has a personal thing or a vendetta against me? So we're alleviating that. And then lastly, Esquimalt Nation or an Esquimalt Nation entity may take over the operation of the project at the end of the lease. So at the end of all of this, Esquimalt Nation or an entity of Esquimalt Nation will take over the lease or take over the management of that 55-unit complex. So what are some of the details on how to vote? The vote is tomorrow, July 21st, starting at 9 a.m. and going until 8 p.m. It will be held over at our big house, which is 1201 Kosapsum Crescent. And I took this right from the designation or the referendum documents. So voters may vote either by a mail-in ballot or at a polling station, but you can't do both. A mail-in ballot package, including a notice of referendum, a mail-in ballot, and an information package will be mailed or delivered to voters who reside on and off the reserve and for whom an address has been provided by Esquimalt Nation to the electoral officer. If a voter was mailed, delivered, or provided a mail-in ballot, the voter may only vote in person at a polling station if the voter returns the mail-in ballot to the electoral officer or deputy electoral officer, or where the voter has lost the mail-in ballot, the voter provides the electoral officer or deputy electoral officer with a written affirmation that the voter has lost the mail-in ballot, signed by the voter in the presence of the electoral officer, deputy electoral officer, a justice of the peace, a notary public, or a commissioner for oaths. And that, of course, is so that there's not multiple votes by one person coming in. So if you're not able to show, hey, I didn't mail it in and I'm here in person, there would be a discrepancy. So, or potentially a discrepancy. So those are, you can do a mail-in ballot or vote in person at a polling station tomorrow between the hours of 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the big house. And this is all included in the package that was sent out. And that brings me to the end of my presentation for today. I'll stop sharing my screen. And are there any questions?
I've done the mail-in.
You did the mail-in?
Because I was never too sure if I could have made it down here.
Okay, perfect.
So that was done 3-4 weeks ago.
Okay, perfect.
And one of our main reasons for coming down now was the housing thing and everything, but yeah, mail-in was fun.
It was, and was it easy? Was it
Easy for me.
It was easy, yeah. Oh, good. Millie or Rob, do you have any questions, or Bronwyn, any comments to correct anything I may have said oddly about things I posted or went through? I think it's the end of the day because I am struggling to talk even. Anyway.
No, I got nothing.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, I thought you summarized everything really well, Katie. I think that captures it. The priority for tenants will be given to Esquimalt Nation members, and BC Housing is funding the whole project, but we will be using the income from the rents to help pay for the operating budget. And that means that we can't have any units vacant, or otherwise the operating budget starts to fall apart, right? We don't make enough money to put in our portion that we said. So that means that if there are units that aren't filled by Esquimalt Nation members, we will go out to other Indigenous peoples. But it won't be any non-Indigenous people will not be eligible for the building.
Thank you, Bronwyn. Millie, John, or Ren, do you have any comments?
When did the mail-in ballots go out, and when did they gotta be in by?
Sorry, John, that was hard to hear. Can you say that again,
I
please?
said, when did the mail-in ballots go out, for one, and two, when did they have to be in by?
So the mail-in ballots went out, I think, Wally, you were saying about 4 weeks ago or
Something
thereabout.
like that, yeah. They had to
So
have been in maybe a week ago, or
they had to be mailed about a week ago,
they had
yeah.
to receive them.
Yes, right, had to receive them.
Vancouver there
So,
about a week ago, I'm not sure.
okay. And I think actually, and Chelsea, I might lean on you a little bit, because I know as the electoral officer, you were pretty involved with that.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I assembled all the packages and I mailed them out on June 8th. So they were in the mail on June 8th. I have received a number of mail-in ballots as of yesterday. So the last day for us to technically receive a mail-in ballot would be tomorrow. So those ballots go to the Indigenous Services Regional Office in Vancouver. I believe the mail arrives around 10 in the morning. So when the poll closes tomorrow at 8 p.m., I'll give the mailroom a call and see if we received, any additional ballots between Monday and Wednesday. And those will also be counted. So if anyone in the room or any of your relatives have any of these ballots on hand, they can always be delivered to the polling station tomorrow, or you can come and vote in person. And Millie, I'm hoping that you're going to be with me tomorrow, or it's the deputy electoral officer. And yeah, I know it'll be a long day, and yeah, just allow me again to apologize on behalf of Indigenous Services Canada for the irregularity that occurred with respect to the last vote. I know that it's not ideal and it shouldn't have happened, but Heichka to you all, and thank you for welcoming me back to Esquimalt, and looking forward to tomorrow.
Thank you, Chelsea. And I can't recall how we explained to community what had happened, but we of course had our original designation vote some time ago, and unfortunately one of Indigenous Services Canada's mailboxes, I guess, had not received payment for some time, so or something to that effect, and so all the votes that came into that mailbox were thrown out, or something was happened. So we weren't able to validate. There was some challenges with credibility or validating how many people voted and in favor or against. So that brings us to the vote for tomorrow.
I was going to say I voted twice, but that was mute.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
Mine went right to Vancouver.
It did, yeah. Okay, and then Ren, John, do you have any other questions?
No, thanks.
They're good? Okay. And then any other comments from Bronwyn, Chelsea, or Christy?
You've captured it, Katie, very well.
Oh, good. I feel like I fumbled through it this time. I don't know why. There you go. All right, well, and then of course, while you're Jan, do you have any questions? Oh, it's just the two of you, really. Yeah.
Well, true, yeah.
There you go, yeah.
I thought there was going to be a bunch of people here.
Yeah, our last designation information session online, we ended up with a handful of people, but I think everybody's quite familiar now.
Yeah.
So there you go. Well, what I'll do is I'll stop recording and we'll upload this to the Facebook page so that people can see, and then the vote will be tomorrow. So I'm going to stop the recording now.